recording, he would get very, very, very wound up. He did a recording in Galway years ago for Seamus Walsh, and it was in Seamus's attic in Renmore. So his attic, the majority of the attic was kind of the sound room, and then a portion of the attic was closed off for the actual, where the musicians would record. So it was quite enclosed, and I was doing piano on it at the time. Just for backup on the day, you know, it obviously wasn't going to make the recording itself, but I remember the poor man was inside and he just kept playing and playing and playing and playing and playing, and he came out and he was just like, you know, he was like a man that had seen 10 ghosts. He was just so wound up. He would get so, the spotlight, I mean, he was such a paradox in ways that someone asked me one time, so what's your dad really like? And I said, I don't really know. And he goes, I know, come on, what's he like? And I was saying, well, you probably have a better chance of getting to know him than I do. There were times when he would open up, but for the most part, even at home, he wouldn't say very much. And I think the closer you were to him, like I said previously, he had an awful lot of love in him, and he would express that, but it would never be verbal, or very rarely now. You know, the odd time he'd give you a hug and you'd be going, oh, Jeannie. You know, he wasn't a big displayer, he didn't verbalise much. And I think an awful lot of what he had to say came out in his music. And it was probably very cathartic for him, because you know, if you've things to say and you can't express them, that gets very frustrating and can be hard to live with. Focal dystonia. So when I was maybe about 17, I noticed kind of a change in my hand, and I was going, geez, what's that? But play a couple of tunes and it'd be fine. But after my brother's death, these two fingers stopped. They just wouldn't function, they just curled in. So as you can imagine, that kind of led to a massive panic, because the first thing you realise is that my whole being was wrapped up in music. All my friends were musicians, everything I did was music related, so your whole sense of identity was kind of threatened. So I worked around it, and it was maybe, I'd say 15, 20 years later, I heard of focal dystonia and started to look it up. So focal dystonia is usually the result of trauma. And so it's the way I try to describe it is like an emotional event that moves into your nervous system, displays itself physically, and it takes kind of the thing you love the most. It goes for the thing you love the most. So a lot of sports people would have it, musicians, dancers. A lot of people are affected by it. So it basically, it's like the nervous system is trying to control your physical movement, but obviously it can't. So all the messages are all misconstrued, and I think where the struggle is that you're kind of working from your memory. My fingers do this, why aren't they doing this? So the first thing you have to kind of do is accept it. There are lots of people trying themselves to figure out ways. We spoke about the flow state. That's the holy grail when you have focal dystonia, because it's almost as if the ego has you by the throat and it just speaks fear. So even if there's no words and you're trying, like I was saying to you about, I always have to meditate to be able to play. So the less involved I am orally, in a sense, the more chance there is that this won't happen. You know what I mean? I mean, you'd never get, well, I haven't so far had the use of the full hand I think I was 20 the last time it happened. Once or twice it might happen out of the blue. But I haven't had it in, I haven't played it full hand since I was 19. Yeah.
Can you relate any of what what you've suffered with over the years to your father's playing, to his music, and to maybe stage fright or any of that? Is there any relationship there?
Well, I do remember, I don't know where it was now, but I know it was myself and Dad, and Tola Custody was there, and Dad got incredibly nervous. And you know, when you're young, you're kind of fearless and playing, so you just sit up and play. And it was the first time I remember being very aware of there's something to fear. Like, I didn't know what it was at the time, but I remember sensing and feeling his fear, the stage fright. Because I remember Tola saying to him, you know, if you weren't nervous, Tola was great. He'd always have these big wise sayings, you know, no matter what age he was. He said, you know, a little bit of nervousness is good, you know. And I just remember that. I think it might have been Corofin or somewhere. But so I like, the only thing with Dad's tunes is, like, I remember somebody saying to me one time, there's a tune there that I learned, it's called Tommy Peoples. Did your dad write that? So I didn't know what tune they were talking about, and I just said, can you play it? And he went, yeah. And I said, well, it's probably not his, so. And that's what I find. Someone said to me, oh, you must know all these tunes. And I said, no, because I've only got 2 hands, and you need kind of 12. I did Milltown with him 2 years in a row, and he thought, I'm trying to think of the name of it now. Could be the Lynches of Clogher or something. But it's a 4-part hornpipe or a barn dance, and there's a lot of position work in it. And like, Dad would start these tunes, and I'd be looking at the class going, oh, the poor creators, like, we're going to be here for the whole day, you know. But I mean, I did it 2 years in a row with him, and I still couldn't play it. Like, it's, his music is so demanding. So I had to learn very early on that I would know what tunes of his that would suit the conditions of my hand, and I'd know the ones just to stay away from. But it's great, like, you see people like Martin McGinley and Bede Harper, Michelle O'Brien, they've gone off and learned an awful lot of his tunes. So it's great that they're being played, because I'd love to be able to do it, but I just physically can't. But the stage fright, I don't know, is it just genetic or is it a learned behaviour? I don't know what it is, but I would have it. It wouldn't be my favourite place in the world, sitting in front of a microphone. I find if there's a couple of people there, but if I have to do it on my own, it's just blind terror.
How did your dad deal with something that sometimes, obviously, to other people didn't come naturally to him, getting up on stage and playing?
I couldn't tell you why he persevered, because it really wasn't something he was very comfortable with. I mean, he got very comfortable with it towards the end, but he would have to play on his own. Like, his compositions are such that even if you tried to accompany them, if someone sat up with him, like, you hadn't a hope of following it. Like, it didn't follow the normal chord progressions, or, you know, the structure was always different, and I think towards the end he just preferred to play on his own rather than battle with somebody else, because he, again, I don't think his music was attached so much to his ego as he definitely was a conduit, if you like, for I don't know what, like, but I like to describe it as kind of when you know, that in chemistry you can't create energy or destroy it, so that any bit of energy we experience as humans, when it's released, that it still has all the knowledge, so that this gathering community of energy up there that's full of music. And I suppose we're probably a lot wiser when we're not human, thinking we know so much stuff, that there's probably an awful lot more to say. And again, it goes back to his upbringing. they would have been very suppressed, you know. So his would have been a place of kind of quiet, you know. They were their area, their whole community was kind of told to be quiet and be good, and do what we say. So I think coming from there to Dublin, and suddenly, as a young person, like I think he might have been 15 when he left for Dublin. That's quite a change in environment, and everyone has coping skills for what they grew up with. So if you take somebody out of that environment, they have these coping skills, can't use them, but they don't have coping skills for the new place, if you understand me. So like, say for example, a child that might be fostered out of a really bad scenario would often run back because they know that and they can deal with that. They can't deal with somebody being nice to them. So I think probably his stage fright probably came about because of that absolutely massive jump in change. And I think it just took him a long time to kind of accept that this was okay. You know, that like other people didn't live like they had experienced in St. Johnston in Ireland, you know.
You've gone through gigs with your dad, so talk to me about the preparation for a gig and then what would happen on an actual stage.
Again, back to his extreme teaching methods. I don't know if he was trying to teach me something or what, but I can pick up a tune like in the first 3 or 4 notes. Nobody wouldn't even know I didn't know that tune wasn't coming. We used to do in Kilfenora, like again, I spoke about Kilfenora and the community, and it was a real co-op kind of based thing. So they had a community hall in the centre of the village, and they were always running concerts and dances and fundraising, and they were always at it. So there'd be a lot of concerts, and a concert might have 50 different items in the night and go on for 3 or 4 hours. So Dad would pick 3 sets of tunes, and we would hit the stage, and God only knows what he'd play. So you just had to be ready for anything. Because I got caught scowling at him a couple of times when I was very young, like, but that's not what we agreed, you know. And then I learned, no, you can't kind of do that. So you just learn to kind of anticipate when he was going to change, and then you just be ready and have to pounce. He often made me learn a tune backstage and go up and play it 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, or it could be halfway through a set of 5. So you really had to learn how to store information very quickly with him.
Like for 90-95% of musicians, they wouldn't really get that. Why would somebody have prepared, say, those 3 sets and then go up and something completely different would come out?
Because again, I think it's that fear thing that he had to get into a zone in his head where he was comfortable. And like I've often set up to play at something, and I'd have a set of tunes in mind, and I go to play them, and again with the condition of the hand, I go, that's not going to work, and I would just stop. I say, no, I'm going to play something else. And I think maybe with to play as well as he wanted to, he kind of had to put everything out of his mind, and just get into this zone, and then what would come out would be what he would be most comfortable with. I mean, again, it's not something we sat and discussed too often, and if we did, I don't really remember what he said about it. But I would imagine it was just he had a place of trust within him that he was always kind of trying to get to when he played.